We'll give them just a minute to filter in here, and then we'll get started. Well, good morning, everyone, and happy St. Patty's Day for those of you that are celebrating. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Rick Harris today. He is a principal broker with John L. Scott Real Estate and a principal at Rick Harris Seminars, a real estate training and strategic facilitation company based in Ashland, Oregon. Rick has over 30 years of hands-on experience in the trenches experience as a real estate in real estate sales and realtor leadership at the local, state, and national levels. Rick serves and has served on too many NAR committees and work groups to list, and always has his finger on the pulse of the industry. I am so pleased to welcome back friend of LIBOR, Rick Harris, to give us the inside scoop on the big issues we need to be aware of. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Tessa, and good morning, Long Island. Nice to see you all this morning from cyberspace. I do live on the West Coast. I'm in Ashland, Oregon, a little resort town. We have the largest regional theater in the United States here. It's a beautiful mountain valley. And this morning it's 38 degrees and sunshine. So I hope you guys are having good weather. We're having a wonderful time this spring. So I'm going to share my screen this morning and walk you through some major issues to be thinking about. And important for you all to know that I'm a working broker. Every day I list and sell property. Yesterday I was dealing with multiple offers on a property, as I know many of you have dealt with. And boy, it's crazy out there. It's really a difficult marketplace to work in, and also a lot of emotions are high. So I'm going to share my screen, and as we work our way through this morning, I want to make sure that you have the ability to ask questions as you go. And so on your screen, you'll have a chat function. And in that chat function, you want to type in questions that you may have, make sure that you are getting your points across so that we hear them appropriately. And then we'll take a break about a third of the way through and answer questions as we go. And please make this about your business, because it's important to me that we talk about business. And so important to me that we understand that we all buy service from the National Association of Realtors. Along with Long Island and NISAR, you buy service from 3 levels of realtor organization. And sometimes at the federal level, it's a little hard to understand what's going on. So this class is all about what the heck is NAR up to now. And we're going to talk today about MLS. We're going to talk about antitrust a little bit. We're going to talk about diversity, equity, and we're going to talk about the code of ethics in terms of Article 10 and some changes that are there. As Tess noted, I'm a principal broker. I'm an educator. I serve at the national level. I train all across the country. Yesterday by Zoom, I was in, Tennessee. I was in Oregon, and I was in Iowa, all within the space of 3 hours, and makes it a whole lot easier to do that on Zoom. The important part about my resume, as I said, is I sell real estate every day. So I look at these topics for what it means in my business. So first, I want to talk about antitrust lawsuits. Now, that seems like a really dull subject, but I can tell you it's right at the heart of how we do our business. These are essentially about the way we operate MLS systems in the United States. Now, let me give you a little caveat about antitrust. It's important that we understand that we are in a competitive business environment. Each of you is an entrepreneur. You get to run your business as you see fit in the most appropriate way for your family, for your income, and for your customers and clients. Antitrust is all about making sure that the consumer has access to a competitive marketplace so that they can choose who's going to best represent their interests and their needs. So as we talk about this, recognize that antitrust law is designed to protect the competitive environment, to make sure that there is competition so consumers have the right for choice. Well, there have been a couple of 3 MLS-oriented antitrust suits that are really important to us. And some of them you may know about, some you may not. The first is a class action suit, and it was filed in 2019. And first got filed in Missouri, and then there's a lawsuit in Illinois that's kind of a similar one. And these are called Merle versus NAR and 4 of the major franchises in the United States. And what they say essentially is that the MLS policy that requires participants to cooperate with and to compensate each other are a violation of antitrust law. So think about that. That offer of compensation that says that when you show a competitor's listing, you'll get paid if you bring an offer that closes. They're saying that that's anti-competitive and antitrust. They also say that consumers don't have any ability to negotiate their commissions with real estate professionals. Now, you and I both know, having sat at the listing table, worked with buyers, commissions are negotiable every day. And our job is to make sure we're demonstrating the value we bring to the table so that in that negotiation, we can demonstrate why we get paid what we get paid. Well, the lawsuit tries to say that that's anti-competitive. They say this: home sellers are being unfairly required to pay commissions of the buyer agent. Second, sorry about that. Technology is great until it's not. Pardon me for that. They falsely claim that buyer-broker role has diminished over time and it doesn't have any value in a transaction. Now, we both know that home sellers pay that commission because buyers are bringing money to the table. And that's a convenient way for buyers to roll the commission of their professional into the transaction. We also know that the buyer broker is supremely important. If you're in a multiple offer situation as a consumer, it's really important to have a great buyer's agent putting the deal together for your best interests. So what is the fact? Well, the fact is that those unilateral offers of compensation, that brokerage fee offered as part of the MLS, create a competitive and efficient marketplace, and it benefits both buyers and sellers. Imagine if we didn't have that. Every consumer would be required to go broker to broker to broker to find properties that might suit their need, and they wouldn't get the opportunity to choose who they want to work with. We also know that commissions are negotiable. So these lawsuits about commission are simply wrong. Wrong on the facts, they're wrong on the economics of the situation, and they're wrong on the law. Well, that's one. Second is the Department of Justice. And last year, the Department of Justice got involved with NAR, claiming that we had an illegal restraint on competition. And NAR reached out to say, really, what is that about? Because they don't agree with the claim that we have unfair competition. And working with the Department of Justice is never easy. They've got lots of attorneys and a fair amount of money to work this with. So NAR, in negotiation with them, have come to a settlement agreement. And they settled with the Department of Justice to avoid litigation that costs a lot of your money, but also to make sure that we got to really what the value of the MLS is. And what they say is that we're going to find out in a very short time what the settlement finalization will be, next couple of months. And so that means that right now you don't need to take immediate action, but there's also requirements coming that you can prepare for. So what does that settlement agreement with the Department of Justice actually say? Well, first, It says that the offer of compensation that's in the MLS must be disclosed. It means that every time you're talking with a buyer about what properties they're interested in, what the features are, now the commission offered must also be disclosed. And that has to be available in all the publicly facing websites. You can put it on your IDX feed if you choose, you don't have to, but it is available to the public. And then you will have an affirmative obligation. That means you must provide that information to the clients for every house they have interest in. That means the MLS sheets that show what the features of the house are and some of its confidential information, the commission offered will no longer be confidential. The second thing in that settlement is that you may no longer advertise your services as free. Now let's think about that. We know that you get paid for your services. Now you get paid oftentimes through the MLS offer of compensation. But even though that compensation is on the seller's side of the transaction, there's still a cost to the buyer. And that's in the form of an adjusted price, sometimes the terms. Those show up on buyers' closing statements. So buyers are paying for services. Sometimes brokers have advertised that as no cost to work with me. There is a cost to the buyer, and they need to understand it and they need to be aware of it. The third thing that's in that settlement is that you cannot then filter the MLS listings based on how much you're going to be paid or based on the name of the broker or the agent. Now, why is that important? Well, what it is that you have an obligation, both under the code and legally, to provide buyers with information on all of the listings that might meet their criteria. And you can't exclude them based on how much you're going to be paid or how you happen to feel about that particular agent or company. That buyer should have access to all of the available listings, not based on what listings you choose to show them. The last part's an interesting one. It says that Lockbox access must be available to all licensed real estate professionals. Now, what does that mean? Even if people are not participants in your MLS, they're going to have to be able to have access to lockboxes. Now, there's some caveats with that. You have to make sure that it requires the seller's approval. That is that okay with your seller? And your MLS can make this more of a level playing ground by saying, if you're going to have access, you're going to have to sign a key agreement. You're going to have to pay a reasonable fee in order to do that. So those are four big pieces that are out there. What can you do about this DOJ settlement? Well, I believe you can tell your story better. You can explain how the MLS works, how it opens up the pool of buyers to sellers and makes more homes available to buyers. That's a value of the MLS. You should be explaining to your consumers how it is that you get paid, how the cooperative compensation works, and how that process makes it easier for them to pick whichever agent they want to work with throughout the marketplace. Third, remember that free has no value. If you use the words free as part of your service, you don't actually respect what you do and the value that you bring to the table. Defend yourself, stand up, show that you have real value. You're worthy of your hire. Make sure that you explain that to your consumers. And the last thing that's important about this, get your listings to the MLS. Recognize that the cooperative value of the MLS is in the best interest of the buyers and sellers, and that lets the open marketplace determine pricing, availability, right way for offers to come together, and timing. When we hold things back from the MLS, we're clearly not cooperating with brokers. You say, well, why should I do that? It's a very competitive market. How am I going to get paid? Well, understand that multiple listing services connect buyers and sellers in the United States through agents. And the MLS also gives first-time and low-income and other buyers better access to the American dream of home ownership. And it also exposes the greatest number of potential buyers to someone selling a home. What if we didn't have an MLS? Right now, we have the largest database of available homes. Without it, we wouldn't have a centralized source of available homes. We have the most up-to-date status about property. Without it, our information would be outdated and useless. We have maximum availability. Everything in the MLS goes out to multiple IDX feeds available to consumers on your websites. Without it, consumers would have to go market to market, agent to agent to find things available to purchase. I apologize, I had a slight, there we go, glitch. It'll be just one moment while I get my technology working better there. What can you do about the situation? Well, it's important that you understand that you have to defend yourself. You have to get the kind of training that will help you understand how to negotiate with buyers, how to get paid appropriately, because there are people in the world that would like to cut buyers' agents entirely out of the transaction. So learn very first how to demonstrate your value to buyers. The accredited buyer representation course is a great way to do that. Make sure that you're explaining to buyers how you get paid, what you get paid, and most importantly, why you're worth what you get paid. Learn how to negotiate exclusive representation contracts. You know how to do this on the listing side. Many of you don't know how to do it on the buyer side. And that means that you don't actually have a client in that situation. Learn to list your buyers. And then lastly, understand how the MLS offer of compensation really works and help them understand how you're going to negotiate the fee that's right for you and that's right for your client. So those are three examples of lawsuits that are out that are going to directly affect your business. So I'd be interested now if you have any questions that we can get answered there. Marianne, is there anything in the chat right now for questions?
I don't see anything right now, so you can continue. I'll keep watching. Okay.
I'm going to go on to another section. Is there anything that you have questions about the MLS lawsuits? It looks like, Amy, you got a question there. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Amy, and ask. Christina says, is ABR the same as CBR? I'm not familiar with CBR. ABR is accredited buyer representation. An accredited buyer representative is a series of classes that help you be better prepared to work specifically with buyers, understanding buyers' needs, how to negotiate on their behalf, how to work with them effectively. It's a designation offered through the National Association of Realtors that you can take that also demonstrates to the public that you are specially trained to work specifically with buyers. Okay. Other questions there? All right. I'm going to take just a second and I'm going to undo my screen and come back in just a second so I can get to, I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a minute and correct that. So it'll be just a moment as we move our way on. Okay. Marianne, how's my screen size? I can't see it on your end, but I can see it on my end. Good?
You're in presenter view right now, Rick.
One more.
Yeah, you're in presenter view, so we're seeing the current slide and the next slide.
Yeah, let me see if I can correct that. In the meantime, Amy, can you explain again when MLS must publicly disclose compensation in public-facing websites? Right now, the Department of Justice has not yet finalized its rules with NAR. And so as a piece of that, the NAR negotiation will continue. Once the Board of Directors has adopted, then they'll be able to have those rules published, and then those then those compensation numbers must be available in every IDX feed to the brokers. Brokers can then determine if they display them publicly or if they provide them once they work with an individual consumer. And then Luz notes, co-op fees and credit check fees, are they not part of the new law change? Co-op fees, yes. Cooperative fees in the MLS, yes. Credit check fees, I'm not clear about that. I don't think that that's been finalized yet. So if you're thinking about credit check fees as part of leasing for people, we'll have to find out what DOJ says specifically about that and letting that be out to the consumer. This is often toward the sales side and less toward the rental side. So stay tuned on that issue about credit check fees. And then Joy notes, are the non-MLS member brokers who have access to lockboxes then entitled to commission from the seller? What I will say to you, Joy, is the offer of compensation in the MLS is from broker to broker in the MLS, participant to participant. And at this point, the DOJ settlement is not saying anything about the requirement to share commissions. As you may know, Article 3 of the code requires us to cooperate in the interests of the seller, in the interest of the consumer. And that does not require compensation. Compensation is an agreement between members of an MLS. So access to the lockbox does not necessarily mean access to the cooperative fee. That would have to be negotiated separately. Okay. So again, I apologize for a second while I get my technology working appropriately. Hold on just one moment for me. There we go. All right, let's go for our second topic then this morning. And these are changes to the Code of Ethics. Now, why is this important to us? Well, as Realtor members, we have agreed to act in our businesses in a professional manner. And the Code of Ethics defines for us what that agreement looks like. It's an agreement between us and the consumers we work with, between us and the public, and between us and the other brokers that we work with. As part of that, we make commitments to the public about how we're going to act. And over the past year, there have been significant changes in the attitudes in our country, in the kind of temper that goes on in social media. And that's led to some changes in our commitment to the public relative to Article 10. Let's look at that. Article 10 of the code, something we've agreed to, says that realtors shall not deny equal professional services to any person for reasons of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Those are what are called the protected classes. Now, I know in New York, you have a number of other state mandated and sometimes locally mandated protected classes, but these are the ones that the Code of Ethics deals with. It goes on to say that realtors shall not be party to any plan or agreement to discriminate against persons or persons based on those 9 protected classes. And it's important for us to understand those two pieces. We've agreed we're going to provide equal service, and that we will not be party to any form of discrimination. Well, during 2020, NAR received an unprecedented number of complaints about realtors posting discriminatory speech and conduct online. And that was especially on social media. Now, as we all know, social media is a big part of how we interact, even more so during the pandemic shutdown. The difficulty is that when you're posting on social media, you're not face to face often with the person that you're talking to. And because of that, people will say things online they would never say in person. There was an uptick of more than 10 times the number of complaints. And after a lot of public input and a big debate, NAR Professional Standards Committee approved and recommended adoption of 6 changes to the Code of Ethics and policies. And those were then adopted by NAR Board of Directors on the 13th of November. Well, what did they cover? First, they can be in 3 kind of big categories. The first was a change to the Code of Ethics that says your behavior is not just related to real estate related activity, but to all of your activities. Second, a new standard of practice was adopted under Article 10 that prohibits discriminatory speech and conduct. And third, there were revisions to the idea of the public trust that required different kind of reporting situations if there are violations of the Code of Ethics. So the rule that got changed about applicability, the standard in our Code of Ethics is that realtors shall be subject to disciplinary action under the code with respect to all of their activities. That means whether you're talking about real estate, whether you're engaged in real estate, whether you're talking with your friends or people on social media in general, those issues are subject to the code. And specifically, those are going to be subject to Article 10, that we will provide equal service and that we will not be parties to any form of discrimination. Along with that, the Board of Directors, at the request of the Professional Standards Committee, adopted a new standard of practice. And a standard of practice tells us what we do to live up to that goal of not discriminating and providing equal service. So here's what it says. Realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. That means that when you're providing equal service, when you're agreeing not to discriminate, things that might show that you have that tendency would be harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs. And again, those are on the 9 protected classes. Well, people thought this was a huge issue. They thought it was an imposition on free speech, and recognized that as members of the National Association of Realtors, as members of the New York State Association and the Long Island Board of Realtors, you have agreed to act in a particular way to provide a level of professionalism. And we already have a requirement to provide that equal service and not be parties to discrimination. That's Article 10. That did not change. But if you're posting publicly hate speech, it reveals a bias, and it very likely could result in you not taking clients from certain protected classes or treating clients equally. And these would be violations of the Fair Housing Act, either through overt discrimination or unequal treatment. And that's an important piece. It's hard to say that what you do in private doesn't affect what you do in public. So how do we know if we are violating that 10-5? Well, first, the question is the speech offensive, or is it truly harassing, hate speech, an epithet or slur. People have been concerned that any form of disagreement about politics, about religion, is all harassing or hate or epithet or slur. And it is not. It's very clearly that it rises to a higher level of what must be said in order for there to be a violation. And second, does it meet one of the protected classes? So a friend said to me, well, if I'm one political party and you're a different political party, that must mean that I can't say I disagree with you or even vehemently disagree with you. And the answer to that is politics is not one of the protected classes here. If I use language that calls out you based on your religion and do that in a way that is not just derogatory, but hateful and harassing, that would rise to that level. So understand that it is not designed to limit free speech, because free speech is not free. That is, it comes with responsibility. You can say whatever you choose, but there are consequences to our speech. And importantly, this came out of a very, very difficult situation, exacerbated by somebody being filmed online, very racist oriented speech saying people of this background can't be here. This is a blank free zone. You're not allowed. And of course, in the media, that became realtor says, and that paints us all with that behavior. And that's the reason for this change to make us more responsible. Well, that then gets to the issue of the public trust. We're in a public service business. Now, that doesn't mean free. What it does mean is the public must trust us in order to take the responsibility for helping them get through one of the largest financial purchases they'll ever make. And in that regard, we have an obligation. Public trust is, if we breach it, it means that we are demonstrating a misappropriation of the client or customer's funds or property, stealing from them, taking their property or their money, discrimination based on one of the protected classes, or fraud. And if those things happen, the rules have been changed so that the association, if they've gone through an ethics complaint and find the realtor in violation of the code related to real estate activities and transactions where they have breached the public trust, those then must be reported to the real estate agency in your state. And so bottom line about it is that because of the environment that we're in, the rules have had to change in order to hold us to a higher standard. And if we think about that standard, that is what it is to be a realtor, to rise above just the average licensee. So what can you do to encourage there to be better behavior and not engaging in this kind of hateful and harassing behavior? Well, I always believe that you demonstrate it yourself. Be the example. Treat people the way you want and with the respect you would want for yourself. And don't ever be a party to discrimination. If you think about it, there are many, many, many of us who have been discriminated in a variety of ways. It's never right. It's never good. And quite frankly, for us, the basis of our entire business is the free and open ability for anyone to be able to buy a home, to use their property, to rent as they choose, and to do that within a set of rules. We've agreed to live up to that. We should be the example of that. It's important that we learn to build bridges in the world. You know, we've been putting walls up around ourselves forever. And the challenge with social media is that it makes that wall even bigger. So you want to be thinking about how you can reach out to be available to the extremely diverse communities that you work in. Engage in that diversity because it's a wonderful business opportunity. Be the one who will serve whatever person in the community needs your help. Build that bridge to the opportunity to get on the ladder of home ownership. Remember that what you do and what you say in private matters. that if you're having hateful speech in private, that gets at how you truly feel. And that may make it very difficult for you to give equal service in a public environment like the real estate community. And then lastly, if you haven't heard this recently, social media is forever and it can hurt your business. So don't post in anger. Don't get on Facebook when you're not ready to be on there. And don't ever post anything that you wouldn't say to a person in their face. It's really important that we understand that social media is about society, about building bridges in society. It's not about dividing us into smaller groups. So I'd be interested to see if there are questions at this point, and happy to answer of any of those that I can. Marianne, are those questions in the group, in the chat?
I'm not seeing any. I'm looking. Oh, they're interested in, and they want to see your screen.
Yeah, I'll bring my screen right back up.
Okay.
I just had to bring something else to the fore there.
But we welcome questions. I'm also getting everyone the ABR dates. LIBOR is offering, I know you mentioned ABR and the importance of buyer representation and national designation. So I'll be able to give everyone the ABR dates in a moment.
And, you know, that's really important to know about that, Marianne, because the classes that are coming are part of this educational series. The other thing to know about that is that April coming is Fair Housing Month. And there are a series of classes coming this next month at the noon breaks that also are helpful to you in terms of how to do fair housing better, class opportunities, training people from the National Association of Realtors, economics, to help you with your business. Can you talk briefly about a couple of those classes that might be out there and available?
Sure. For ABR, which is accredited buyer representation, it's a national designation. LIBOR will be offering it on May 24th and 27th, August 9th and 12th, October 18th and 21st. And you can find the registration links or more information about them by going to lirealtor.com/education and click on designations and certifications, and everything is there. For Fair Housing Week, we've dedicated all of our Wednesday webinars toward fair housing, implicit bias, diversity and inclusion. National Association of Realtors Fair Housing Division representatives will be with us on one or two of them. And we encourage everyone to be part of it and listen in. Suffolk County Human Rights Commission Director Dawn Lott will be with us. And that will be Wednesday, 12 to 1 slot. At Home with Diversity is a National Association of Realtors certification designation. And LIBOR will also be offering that through, or in April, Fair Housing Month. And NAR has, do you want to talk about that? I don't want to take that from you, Rick.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Marianne. Yeah, At Home with Diversity, we're going to talk about in this next session, but an important piece about that is that the president of the National Association of Realtors, Charlie Oppler, has issued a challenge to us all about fair housing. And his challenge is this: take the fair housing classes that are available. At Home with Diversity is one of those. It's a wonderful class that's been updated recently, talking about ways that you can bring diversity into your business, have a business plan specifically about how to learn it better. Great recording available for those of you who are in leadership, either for the Long Island Board or through NYSAR, where that's available to you with Robert Morris and Matt DeFanis. Did a wonderful session, 7 hours worth of how to do fair housing better. Also, Charlie agreed that we should reduce the cost of that in celebration of Fair Housing Month. So the fee for becoming certified with At Home with Diversity is reduced from $75 to $40. And then the cost of delivering that class is also reduced for associations, all designed to make it easier for you to get those certifications. Well, let's talk a little bit about fair housing. So as you know, because you're at the epicenter of the fair housing issue, in fall of 19, Newsday published the undercover story that they'd been doing about fair housing called Long Island Divided. Now, I don't need to tell you, since you're in the thick of that, exactly what the issues there. But in that, that's been a really important piece to remind all of us how easy it is for fair housing violation to slip into our daily activity. Sometimes intentional, sometimes not intentional. Sometimes people of goodwill can make mistakes, and sometimes people can be discriminatory because it's a little easier. And none of those are good, none of those are appropriate, and all of them violate the law. Well, that Newsday story underscored NAR's need to participate and step up and reinvigorate its commitment to fair housing, to diversity, and to inclusiveness in the housing market. Important to know that we had the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act in 2018. And while we have come a long way, we still have a long way to go. Well, what's NAR done about that? Last year, in early 2020, the national president at that point, Vince Malta, launched a Fair Housing Action Plan, ACT. And that emphasizes the accountability we have, the culture change about the way we work, and additional training needed to ensure that realtors are doing everything possible to protect housing rights. Why? Because housing is what we do. The availability to rent and to own housing is our livelihood. It makes it possible for us to make a living. If we don't protect it, no one will. Well, in November, the board of directors made that historic move to strengthen the commitment by creating additional tools, some of which we've talked about in the code and others in terms of training that are provided. And they've created an entire website all about diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And you can get to that at nar.realtor. Just type in diversity and you'll get to the series of resources. Now, why is that important? Well, to change our history, we have to understand it and we have to figure out how to do better. And NAR has identified some tools for us that make that more accessible. I've identified a couple of here, understanding who we are relative to fair housing, plans that make us more accountable and change our culture and give us the training. Also helping us understand that bias is something that comes with every single one of us. And some of it's overt that we know about, and some of it we're not so clear about. And there are tools to help us with that. There's a wonderful simulation training that some of you have taken and others might called Fairhaven, excuse me. And Fairhaven is at fairhaven.realtor. It takes about an hour and a half, and it walks you through a series of scenarios about different situations you might be in to help a person buy, to rent, to sell, and understanding what's the appropriate way to work in that situation. And for me, when I took it, I thought, gosh, I do a great job here. And I saw ways that I could improve and do an even better job. So it was really useful to me. Well, President Charlie Oppler has said, we'd like as many as we can to show this value of fair housing to us and to the public to do three things. Take that At Home with Diversity course. Take about an hour and a half and review a bias override video. And this bias override video is prepared by a local or by an international group who does bias training, understanding what the issues are. And this is posted to the LIBOR website, lirealtor.com/fair housing, and you'll go directly to this piece. And it talks about underlying bias issues we aren't even aware of. And the value of that is we can then make a plan for how to adjust our behavior as we think appropriate, and to be aware how our actions can impact other people. And then again, the third part of that is the At Home with Diversity course. This is a wonderful piece. It qualifies in most states for continuing education. The value of it is it helps you build those bridges to a wider range of clientele. People that you may not have worked with before, but can. Understanding ways to work with people that meet fair housing requirements, but also meet the consumer need, and quite frankly, understanding people better so that you can provide a higher level of service. So those three things are really important to do. And Charlie Oppler's issued this challenge to everybody to do that. I've completed all three and just waiting for my certification for it. And I'll tell you what I learned from it. I learned that if I am open to the idea that my client base can expand, that it can be with people that I've never worked with before, but I have that opportunity. It's a richer, more mosaic kind of business that I have. And quite frankly, it will serve me and my clientele better in the long run. Well, here's some things that you can do to increase diversity and equity and inclusion in your own businesses. First, take a look at your current business practice. Are you giving equal professional service to every consumer? Think about the way that you answer that phone, which listings you show, how you evaluate people for rental opportunities, making sure that everyone gets equal treatment, whether it's what they see, how you interview with them, what services you provide. So begin with an inward look. How is my business doing? Second, make a commitment. Demonstrate to the public that you understand and uphold fair housing law, and make sure that we're expanding the opportunities throughout our community. You know, right now the market's very tight. There's not much to sell. There are a lot of people trying to buy and few properties on the market. And it's been that way for some time, but that will change. It will become a more balanced market. And quite frankly, we've got to have a steady flow of people being able to own and enjoy property in order for our businesses to survive and thrive. Next, make sure you're looking at your offices. Are your offices reflective of the communities that you serve? Have you got greater diversity in your office? Are you thinking about equity issues? Are you including people in your company, in your staffing, in your brokerage, that will help you better serve the clientele in your marketplace? And then the last thing to think about, and this is kind of a technical one, but remember, a lot of our services are being delivered via the web. And that by itself can be an access barrier. If you think about it, I'm speaking English. Many of you do, most of you do. Many of our clientele have English, but also many other languages. Are your websites available in translatable form to various languages? Also, many of the people who use our web services may not be abled in the same way. They may have disabilities like hearing or sight that would make the average website difficult to use. Well, quite frankly, we can make our websites more accessible to the public by making sure that there are adjustments for hearing impaired, adjustments for pictures that read the text so that people who are sight impaired can understand better about what services and properties you have available for them. So there's some ideas that you can think about to make diversity and equity more available to you. I want to take a minute now and just figure out what kind of questions that you have about that. You've been able to see the slides, and we've answered a number of the questions coming through, but wanted to make sure if you have other questions about these three NAR big topics that will affect your business daily. First, about the lawsuits that are out there. Second, about changes to our professional ethics requirements. And then third, about how to be a more diverse and open and available realtor to every clientele that we might serve. So happy to answer questions for you, see if I can be of help for you thinking it through in your business.
It's Marianne. The Q&A is open, so we'll give everyone a chance if they have a question. And in the meantime, I want to give everyone the dates for At Home with Diversity. LIBOR will be offering, we'll be offering that on April 28th and 29th and July 27th and 28th. And again, you can visit lirealtor.com/education and then click on designations and certifications, and everything is right there.
And thank you, Marianne. One thing I'll say about the savings that are there, the designation itself, the certification normally costs $75 through the end of May. That's reduced to $40. So if you take that earlier class, you can also be able to get that designation or that certification at a reduced cost. The reduced cost to the associations in delivering that, that goes through the end of the year so that LIBOR can do those more effectively for you. But as far as you're getting the certification, if you can complete that by the 31st of May, you'll be able to do that at a reduced cost. Okay. Questions about the other topics that we worked on today?
Everyone wants your slides. I guess that's a compliment.
Oh, I see. Elena, can we have the slides? And the answer is no, but what you can do is this little series is going to be posted in the webinar series that LIBOR has on its website. I don't know, Marianne, when will that get posted for you?
It takes a day or two, that's it. And they can go to lirealtor.com/COVID, scroll to the bottom, and all of the Wednesday webinars that we've recorded are there for reference, including yours.
And so the good part is you'll be able to relive my technical difficulties over and over and over. And all of us know, as we've had to learn to work in a Zoom environment, we've had to learn to do this differently. Technology is our friend, except when it's not. And so I appreciate your patience with me today as I work that piece through. Are there other questions that I can answer for you talking about the business? So I've got a couple of participants who've raised their hands. Let's see who that is. Amy or Marianne, can you identify for the participant who has their hand up so we can get a question typed in the chat?
Christine and Maria. Christine Dixon and Maria Sanchez have their hands up, so we're happy to entertain a question if you have one. If you put it in the Q&A or unmute.
Yeah, so if you can they unmute their microphone, Marianne? Because that might be simpler for people.
Sure. Oh, Maria's just saying thank you to everyone. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. And thanks for being with us today. And so happy to answer any other questions before we wrap up for you.
I'm not seeing anything. If they want to email educate@lirealtor.com, I'll be happy to forward it on to you.
Wonderful. And happy to answer any questions that you have. If you've got something else, I'd be happy to respond to you. And so appreciate the time that we've had together. I hope this has been useful for you. If nothing else, being aware of what's coming is always an easier way to prepare for what's coming. And for me, thinking about the lawsuits that are out there, beginning to think about adjustments to my business. You've all had to make adjustments in your business because of the fair housing issues that got revealed during Long Island Divided. And I know that the code of ethics issues sometimes fall to the side, but how important is it for the public to trust us to be able to act in an open and fair and equitable manner, provide our equal service to all, and make sure that we're not acting in any ways that are discriminatory so that they get the best service possible. Well, I so appreciate your time today. I think that's all the questions that we have for today. So to Marianne, to Amy, and to my good friend Tessa Holtz, your CEO, I so appreciate working with you today on behalf of the Long Island Board of Realtors. I hope you have a productive day. Go sell something now.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Oops, it looks like I might have one last question in the Q&A. Are testers coming to hear that we can be prepared? Well, Christina, the important part is testers are everywhere. And importantly, every day is a test. Every day that you're providing service, you want to think about it, not in a fearful manner, but rather to say, how am I changing my behavior to make sure that everybody is getting that equal service? You know, it's interesting to say that testers are what drive this. They certainly have opened up our eyes to what the issues are, but make sure that when you're thinking about where to show property, that the consumers determine where they want to be, not you. That when you're thinking about what properties to show, make sure that anybody with similar criteria all gets to see the same kind of property and opportunity. When you're thinking about rental, you do need to be mindful of the fact that everybody has the right to rent, and there are a series of questions and inquiries that go. That must be consistent and equal and fair. So don't wait for the tester. Change your behavior today. You've seen the kinds of things that are being prepared for. Do that as though you're being tested every day, because in fact we are. How we deliver our service is always being tested by the consumer. And Zaideen, thank you for your nice comment. Appreciate being with you today as well. Any last minute bits before we go?
Someone is asking if you would reiterate your contact information. It is Rick Harris at Mind, help me out.
Yeah, it's actually R Harris, RHARRIS at mind, mind.net. R Harris at mind.net. And happy to chat with any of you at any time.
Rick, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing all of this great information. And we look forward to seeing you back for an update sometime soon.
Well, I hope so, Tessa, and thank you so much. And Marianne and Amy, thank you as well. Have a great day. And again, go sell something. We all got to keep in business. Thank you so much. Bye now.